Hello, everyone. Welcome to Tiger Talk Tuesday. We are at episode 47. I can't believe it. For those that are new to this series, we are discussing all things transitions in sport and life after sport, whether it be due to injury, retirement, or some unforeseen circumstance that forces you to hang up the jersey. Our guest today is Bryan Bickell from the NHL. Super excited to have him. For those of you that might not be familiar with his career, he's from Orono, Ontario. He played hockey in the local league, switching over to AAA. When he was 12, he played for the Lindsay Wolves. Then, due to a move, he played AAA for the Toronto Red Wings. He was drafted to the Ottawa 67s in 2002, where we actually met back then. Had some fun times, eh, Bryan?
Yeah.
his his NHL dreams came true when he was drafted to the Chicago Blackhawks in 2004, and he made his NHL debut in 2007, scoring his very first game against the Detroit Red Wings. His first full-time year in the NHL was in 2011. He won the Stanley Cup in 2013 and 2015, and then was traded to the Carolina Hurricanes in 2017. And as well, that year was diagnosed with multiple sclerosis, the very same year he retired, which we will get into. Bryan is now a full-time dad. I'm sure those beautiful girls are lucky to have you home, who does charity work for the Bryan and Amanda Bickell Foundation to help dogs and people living with MS. So welcome, Bryan.
Yeah, thank you for having me on. Good to see you
Yeah,
again.
I know. We ran into each other at our daughter's hockey tournament, and his wife Amanda came running up to me. We haven't seen each other in a couple years, so it was nice to see you guys. Let's just go back to your younger days as an athlete. Did you play baseball, or there was another sport that you were looking at? Was it baseball?
It was baseball, yeah. I played hockey during the winter, and then I played baseball in the summer. And then I did like the odd tournament for hockey, but I was a two sport guy, and then I had to make a choice when I was around 16. Do I play baseball or do I play hockey? And obviously, being from Canada, you want to play hockey, and it worked out pretty good.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, but it looked like you had some interest from the Yankees or something. I read in one of your bios. Or were you starting to talk to some teams at that age, or?
Yeah, I was a good baseball player. Like I just played it for fun. I didn't train for it. I just hung out with my buddies and played in the local team. Then we would have to play, AAA teams because there's not many teams around our area. One game I did something really cool that's really never done before, 4 home runs in one game. And then the local scout came up to me and wanted to do some tests. And I was like, well, okay, sure. And did the test, and I was only 16 years old. And then going to Ottawa for the following winter, we went on a long run. We went to the finals that year, and then that kind of smushed my baseball career because kind of hockey took over from there.
Yeah, for sure. Well, we are definitely lucky to have you in the NH in the hockey world. What a big thing that I like to talk about on this series. I mean, we can all look up stats on Google and see all that stuff, but I'm really interested in the human aspect of the athletes that I speak to. What was it like for you? I mean, 67s would have been that first big transition for you. What were those years like for you? Did you thrive in the spotlight? Did you have any things behind closed doors that you were really struggling with, or what was that experience like for you?
It was tough. 16 years old, you're moving away from home for a good stint of time. For 8 months, living with a billet, being in a big city. I'm from Orono, which is 800 people. Then moving to Ottawa was a transition, but I was looking forward to it. I was, a 16-year-old looking to, start something, and obviously going to Ottawa and playing my rookie year as an underager, and we had an older team. We had a great time from winning and having good times after off the ice. But overall, it was a great experience. Maybe got a little homesick early, but concentrate on school and get through high school, and I played hockey, and it was a great experience. I met my wife when I was 16, so Amanda, she's still kicking. We've been 20 years plus, so
I know
it was
that's
a good
crazy.
experience, and it was a experience I'll never forget.
What advice would you have for some athletes that are maybe going through that? I know I talk to a lot of players. I deal a lot with like mindset and resiliency development, and you hear either, did you ever go through some bouts of not playing, or you get some feedback that's negative and you got to mentally, it's a competitive sport when you're at that level. Did you ever go through some of those instances, or?
Oh, for sure. Like there's always instances, obviously, with Brian Killeray as a head coach with the old mindset that he had. We definitely had some run-ins of not seeing eye to eye, but it was a young kid that just going to make adjustments, and it was frustrating at times, but overall, he was. I remember the interview we had. He's like, "I'm going to take you as a boy, and I'm going to turn you into a man." So
Oh, I
it
love
was
that.
definitely a term that he used, light-hearted, but he meant it, and I think it was a good experience from leaving Ottawa when I think it was like 18 years old. I got traded to Windsor that last year of my OHL career, but the experience was great. The city was great. We were a good team. The fans were great. It was overall one of the better places to play in the OHL.
Oh, I love it. The NHL comes knocking, every child's dream. What was that like? Where were you when you got the call, or what were you doing? Who were you with?
So I got drafted in '04 in Carolina. I went to the draft. I got drafted second round, 40 something overall, 42nd, I think, to the Blackhawks. Obviously, you lead up having 3 years in the OHL, and then you're like, okay, this is my draft year, and it went pretty good. Like obviously, getting it drafted from the Blackhawks, original six. Not knowing much about the teams. I was a Leaf fan growing up, so I was like, maybe the Leafs, but to get drafted by them and the way they were going, they had some young prospects, and obviously a couple years later, they draft Taves and Kane, and it took me a little bit to get up. Took me three years in the minor leagues to kind of grow as another level of a hockey player, and I had my opportunity to stay in the full time in 2011. It was a great experience. Obviously, the talent that we had on that team with Hossa, Sharp, with the Taves and Kane, Duncan Keith, and Seabrook, and having Crawford as a goalie, it was a special moment to have three championships in a short amount of time, and to be part of that team was something special.
Yeah, I bet. I like how when you mentioned, you had 3 years in the minors. I imagine I'm curious about your mental state during 3 years, because did you ever have, I mean, most guys don't give up on their dream when they know there's like an NHL team riding. But did you ever have moments where you're like, am I ever going to make it? Or, I mean, 3 years, that can feel long. That seems short when we look back at it, but going through it can seem like a longer time period. Where was your headspace when you were in the minors?
It was tough. Like the next jump from the OHL is the American League. Obviously, you would want to make the NHL, but the hardest jump is from OHL to the CHL to the American League. The next jump from the American League to the NHL, I thought it was a lot easier. There was times that, like, you're playing 3-and-3 with travel, and we were playing out of Rockford, Virginia, or Norfolk, Virginia. So our closest game was 5-hour bus ride, and um, it was tough. Like I wasn't in the lineup every game. I was in and out. I was a rookie. I was a 20-year-old, and I was like, oh, this is tough. Like, but I, kept my head in the dirt, and kept digging. And obviously, with my wife being beside me through it all, we moved together when we were 20, and she kind of pushed me and kept me neutralized to hopefully make that next step. And there's times where I'm like, this is this worth it? I'm making 50K, and half of it's going to taxes, and I'm basically living out of nothing. Just the maybe, and I stuck with it, and it was tough. I'm like, it would be nice to do the 9 to 5 and have the weekends off, and hang out with your friends and family. But overall, I just kept with it, and had a couple opportunities, and I capitalized on, and history from there.
Yeah, I love that. Any advice to some guys that are going through that now, waiting? I mean, I love the power of persistence, and I always talk about, the power of just keep showing up. You never know. You never know who's watching. You never know when that door will open. But any advice that helped you stay focused when you were going through it for some young athletes that might be going through it right now?
Yeah, I think the work ethic is the biggest thing. If you have 20 guys or 12 forwards that you're playing against or with that are trying to make that next step, you're trying to push yourself to be better than them, and to do the extra work and put in the extra time. But to have a positive mental state going into it. Negative doesn't really go very far in anything in the world, and especially sports. If you have a positive attitude day in, day out, and have that work ethic, and good things will happen, and people see that.
Yeah, I love that. I talk about that a lot with my athletes. I mean, the best way to separate yourself is to be a workhorse, right? And
Hmm.
constantly positive. So, athletes that are listening, take that to heart because it's a great way to separate yourself, especially once you're at the NHL level. I mean, everyone's great, right? It's not You're not, I know Chris Pronger and I talked about that at that level. Like, regardless of how great you are, you still got to be putting in the work. So you're at the NHL level. I mean, 2 Stanley Cups. Some guys play and they don't even get a chance at that. What was that experience like for you?
It was, a dream. I was kind of a part of the first one in 2010. I got the call up, and then with the cap days of we had to move players, and that's when I got my next step was in 2011. To kind of see the taste of what you need to do to be successful in and out on the ice and off the ice. Um, Definitely was eye opening. And then I got the real chance in 11, and then we won in 13, the lockout year. It was my big year, but just the know of what you need to do each day to make yourself better and make your team better was a big thing that I saw in 2011. Obviously, growing up back home in the ponds or the outdoor rinks, you have the Stanley Cup moments, and you want to play. And the first thing was I wanted to play in the league and be a part of the league, and then getting the opportunities multiple times to win a cup. It was something special. It was a dream come true. They'll never take it away from us, and it was a special moment. I was just so happy to be a Blackhawk at that time.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, it makes me think. I see my little guy George sometimes that we have our backyard rink, and got his arms up, and he's like pretending he's holding a cup. And it's, as kids, we see that vision for ourselves, but to actually live it and be through it. I mean, congratulations on that. That must have been an incredible experience. What about I love to converse around discipline. I think sometimes when people think, like, oh, they're in the NHL, they have it all, you're making millions and all these things, and they think life is just being handed to them. But I know how much work goes into these disciplines behind closed door. I mean, from training to off ice to media days to, if you have to do any type of rehab, how would you rate your discipline level? I mean, for young kids that really think like if they really want an opportunity, how do we hone in on that discipline in the younger years? So were you like that even going into the 67s, and did it translate into the NHL, or did you have to really up level that side of you when you got there?
I think with over time with my career from when I was 16 to when I was about 25, I think the discipline has changed and the game has changed, and the way you the way you eat, the way you exercise, the way you rest, and all that things like back in the day, like painkillers used to be a drink about a dozen beer and then you'd be off to the next day. But now it's a different game, a different it's crazy. Then there's always a saying that what you got to put in your body is what you got to get out of your body, and
Mhm.
I just think I think the Blackhawks kind of got the head start in 2010, 2009. Taves was a big health guy. He's like, we need to do this. We need to get a cook. We need to bring in the right food, because these young guys just wake up and roll out of bed and go to the rink. They're just going to be eating a McDonald's, happy or not a happy meal, but like a breakfast sandwich, and then go practice and expect to do good. And I think Taves definitely brought the next level of what we put in our body is what we're going to get out of it. And there's times to let the hair down and have some socials with the boys in different events. But I think he started something really cool, and I think a lot of teams after that kind of follow us. And um, it's important. Like it's every day, even when I'm retired. The better I eat, the better I feel. So he definitely put that in us, and it definitely helped us to make those long runs.
Yeah, no, for sure. And we take it for granted when you're young, you get away with it a little bit more, and then you realize you can't do it anymore. Eh? You're like, oh,
Yeah.
I can't function like this. Let's go. I mean, 2017, obviously you were traded. But what I'm more curious about is your diagnosis with multiple sclerosis. What was, how did you find out? What was that journey like for you? Were you starting to have some signs, or, I mean, that must have been such a emotional, scary time for you, and where are things now?
Yeah, it was. it was kind of crazy. My career was at its peak in probably 2013, 14, coming off a lot of injuries and surgeries. And then after 15, we won again. I don't know if this was the reason. I got hit and I got the wind knocked out of me. I fainted, and then they thought it was like vertigo, and my ears, my eyes were all out of whack. And then the 16 year, I was just kind of not really performing the way I was like a year ago, and it was very frustrating mentally. And I'm like, is it physically? Or so I, get it back on the bike and worked out extra hard. And then I started getting symptoms like my balance, and then my right side of my body was just off. Like, it just, like, if I slept on my shoulder wrong, it just felt weird, and then I would go and come back and go away. But and then I got traded to Carolina in 17. Played 7 games there. I was looking forward to it, a fresh start with a young team, and in a warm city. And then symptoms just kind of got worse. My right shoulder went to my right hand, then it went to my right leg, and then I was just like, something's up. Like, I've had injuries enough that this is something totally different. And then we kind of looked in more deeper, and I was really thankful to be with the Hurricanes at the time, because they had you know A plus doctors with Duke and the schools around. And then we got looked into it, and then they were like, "Oh, you got multiple sclerosis." And I was like, "If you didn't know anybody that had it, you're like, what's that?" And then it just kind of tells you that you got lesions in your brain and your spine to kind of stop you by doing things. My symptoms were right side of my body, and I couldn't stick handle, or I couldn't even write a sentence, or I couldn't stop on my right foot. So then I was like, this is something totally off. And we found the news, and it was definitely was happy to find the news, but kind of, obviously sad in the way, because, for a year or two, there was something wrong with my game. And, obviously with this intercepting it, it was that. So that was a real that, now I can move on and just roll the punches and go day by day. And now I'm 7 years retired, retired that last year, because I wasn't really chasing much. Got the opportunity to win, got the opportunity to get a good contract to kind of stabilize my family, and I had 2 young kids. We were 3 and 1, so I was like, well, do I get injured more, or hurt me more down the long run, or enjoy the family time? So I've been and doing that, and it's been pretty fun.
Yeah, for sure. I loved meeting your daughters are adorable. And now you're working with the foundation you and Amanda have, and you're trying to bring awareness. Is there something going on specifically there that, or how can people get involved with that?
Yeah, so we started a foundation probably in 2012. Mostly Amanda, because she, was with me, and she couldn't really do much. She couldn't work over in the States because she needed a visa. So she's like, well, we rescued a dog. Her name is Bailey, out of Ontario, when we were 18 years old. So we had her for 16 years. And then the dog got banned. There's a pit bull type dog. And then it got banned. And then we saw the real issue in Chicago with our just flooding in kennels and things like that. So we wanted to give these dogs a voice. And the dogs are not the problem. It's the people that owned them. So we
Mhm.
we do some therapy work with Hespa House on the south side of Chicago, that are for abused kids that are scared of people, but can relate to these dogs that were in the same situation, and they can, just do simple obedience and training and things like that, and they kind of open that way. And I think that's a cool program we do. We do free vaccinations and spade and neuters in clinics on the in Chicago. But then with it being banned in Ontario, we're more working on the MS side. We're in the mix of renovating a property up north. We bought a property right before COVID, and we want to give families retreats. People living with MS, not so much like people like me that are, the normal day to day people, that people are suffering. Well, the families are suffering. Where there's 2 types of MS. There's the relapsing, the one I have, and there's the progressive. The progressive is um, the bad one. Obviously, it's where it's the time is running out, and then it slowly disintegrates the people, and they lose their life a lot quicker. So we wanted to give these families opportunity to not think about the day-to-day stuff and have a retreat where something that I enjoyed doing in my off season is being outdoors and being in the lake, and just give them opportunity to have some family time where maybe before they weren't able to.
Oh, I love that. And
Mhm.
how does someone have to apply or something on your website, or how do people find you, or
Yeah, so we're in the mix of renovating everything right now.
okay.
This spring is going to be a big jump. We're going to be doing a lot of work, and we're kind of hoping for next fall it'll be done. These are three cabins that are 70 years old that need some upkeeping. So we need to make everything wheelchair accessible and accessible to multiple families. So we're looking forward to that. It's a big project for us, but it's I don't know how we're gonna do with I think we're gonna have a background, not just like a background check, but to get a story about these families and what kind of stage they're in. Um, because there's 40, 45-year-olds they're still living with their parents because they can't live on their own. And I think
Yeah.
like stories like kind of like that will lean to, not people like me, because I can still do my day-to-day stuff. There's good days but bad days, but Amanda, my wife, she kind of puts up with that, so it's been pretty good.
I'm sure Amanda could come on this interview as well and
Yeah.
have lots to say. What and where is your physical? Like, where are you now? What do you struggle with on the bad days? What would you be experiencing?
Just drained mentally. Obviously having kids, the stress level gets it
You're
definitely
already
hits
tired.
the red button. But no, just days are there's good days, there's bad days, there's good months. But I take my treatment once a month to kind of keep me stabilized to get me through the month. But overall, it's been pretty good. I've been on it for 7 years, and there's I haven't really had any relapses or anything like that. So it's been a positive direction, and hopefully, with the time we put in and help out charities and with the MS and things like that, hopefully one day we'll find a cure. And I'm not just helping myself, but I'm helping out a lot of people in Ontario, especially because Ontario is the number one population in the world for people living with MS.
Yeah, interesting. Well, I love that you're so involved in the community and animals and everything. So thank you for that, because we definitely need more light workers in this world. Any final words of wisdom? I mean, again, the topic of life after sports, there's so many transitions, and we started this series unfortunately because we found some friends who were deceased in their homes that couldn't transition to life after sports. What was that identity issue like for you? It's one thing to leave and you've been diagnosed with and you're having a health issue, but how did you navigate your transition and that identity not having, not playing? Did you find that took some time for you to kind of ease back into regular life, or what was that experience like for you?
Oh, it was a huge task. Like my first year was probably my toughest year. I've played hockey since I was a kid. I was playing technically professional since I was 16 years old, and retiring, 15 years later. Um, that's all I really knew how to do, was to play hockey. I played hockey and had a couple days off and the summers off, but other than that, like it was all hockey mode. And it was like, the old saying, now what? Well, now what to do? Some people get in, stay into hockey, or get a job or things like that. But it was mentally tough, and it was tough on the wife. It was tough on our relationship. I've known her since I was 16, and I only seen her half the time because I would be at the rink or on the road. And now I'm like, I always see you around. Like this is it's different. But it was hard. I think a big thing for people out there is to talk, not to hold it in. I think if you have friends or family that are you're willing to open up to, and to talk to bounce things and things like that, is important, to get it off your chest, and to find help if you need it, because a lot of people hold it in and sometimes it's too late. And I've had buddies do that in the past, and it's sad, but being a man, no one really wants to talk. That we're stubborn, but I think the biggest thing is to open up, and you can talk about your problems, and hopefully people can help out.
Yeah, absolutely. I love that. And that's what the driving force behind building community and having these crucial conversations, because there are so many athletes that are suffering in silence. So we wanted to create that space. So, well, it's been an absolute pleasure having you on. Again, this is episode 47 with former NHLer Bryan Bickell. Thank you so much, Bryan.
Thank you. Hopefully, we'll see you in a couple weeks when the girls battle again in the next tournament.
Yeah, absolutely. We'll have to make it happen. Thank you so
Yeah,
much.
yeah, good to see you again.